Good afternoon and welcome to today's work session, this April 27th, 2021. On this agenda, we have one item, which is to receive information from the Sustainability, Waste and Beautification Department, including ordinance amendments and FY22 budget needs. Hello,
Good
Dr.
afternoon,
Jenkins.
Chairwoman, Commissioners, County Manager. Thank you for this opportunity to present to the board. This work session is actually a follow-up to what Director Tanks presented to you during the BOC retreat and as a follow-up to what we discussed during the Solid Waste Management Authority meeting. The agenda that we'll follow is going to be I'll briefly talk about our department mission and purpose and a little bit about the history, but you'll see that I'll follow a slightly altered format. Then we'll discuss trash issues and proposed solutions, recycling issues and proposed solutions, litter issues and proposed solutions, and then I'll do a recap and a summary at the end.
Very good. Thank you.
Our first mission statement is to provide leadership and support in overseeing the contracted daily operations of environmentally sound solid waste and recycling facilities. So on the right of the slide, you'll see TAG grinding services that operates our vegetative waste recovery on County Services Parkway. The middle picture is a picture of our transfer station that's operated by GFL. And the lower picture shows the inside operations of the West Rock recycling facility. Won't spend much time on that because they just presented to you last month.
Okay.
Our second mission is to ensure monitoring compliance with the county's 3 closed landfills. We'll talk about landfills a little bit later, but at this point I will say that in Cobb County we have no operating landfills, but we do have 3 landfills that are in closure that we're required to maintain monitoring and compliance until those landfills no longer pose any threat to human health or safety.
Okay.
Jonathan, when is our 30 years?
Let's use your mic. Yep.
When are our 30 years up?
The first landfill went into closure, I believe, in 1998. But at this point, there's no signs of it stopping generating methane anytime soon. It's not posing any threat to groundwater, but it's putting out a pretty good amount of methane. So we might still have another 30 years, I guess, from today before that landfill, we can stop monitoring it. Any other questions? Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay. So our third part of our mission statement is to provide waste reduction programs in accordance with local, state, and federal regulations. So we do things as provide like the Hefty Energy Bag Program. We provide environmental education and recycling education. We have our drop spots, so that's our recycling drop spots. It's one in each district. And then, of course, our events. These events are massive. If you have been to the events, you know what I'm talking about. If you've not been to the events before, please come to an event. We have one on Saturday. We also promote stewardship of our communities through litter prevention, beautification, recycling, and environmental education. And so the top right, you can see that's a picture of our Adopt a Mile, one of our Adopt a Mile groups. This is probably what we're best known for, our Adopt a Mile program that we manage in Cobb County. And then we also do community beautification and greening, gardening and planting trees. And then environmental education as well, where this actually was a picture of us hosting a table at Kennesaw State University at the Marietta campus, where they received a grant from Keep America Beautiful to get recycling bins and trash cans at that campus.
At this point, I would normally talk a little bit about history, but I'm going to deviate just a little bit. So we'll start talking about trash. I wanted you to just hear a sample of some of the calls that we receive concerning trash issues in Cobb County.
Your district. This will be the final call I make on this subject. I've been on the phone since 7 a.m. does not pick up garbage. They passed my house in front of me Wednesday. Last week, they never came out to the street. I had surgery on my foot. I can't keep wheeling these very full garbage cans up and down the driveway. I talked to someone in my notes, a supervisor at Wednesday afternoon. They said the stuff would be gone by Thursday. I got home Thursday. It was still there. I called today. They wouldn't let me talk to a supervisor. I told them where they can stick it. I told them I'm renting a truck tomorrow if the garbage is not gone. I told them to cancel the account, which I guess they did because they're not getting any more money, so that doesn't matter. And I told them they will give me a rebate or they will never see those garbage cans. And if they don't give me that rebate by this time next week, the garbage cans are going to the dump. In the meantime, I've been working with someone that was helpful, Sandra, I think, at Solid Waste. And she gave me a slew of phone numbers, and not a single one picks up on my street. And then a lot of them gave me additional numbers when they told me they didn't pick up on my street. And not a single person picks up on the street that I have been able to find yet. So I need somebody to tell me what's going on, and I need this commissioner to do her job. I know she knows about this because when I called Sandra, I said I had a problem. I'm having a problem with a garbage pickup service, and she said, "Is it a?" I said, "Yeah. How would you know?" She goes, "I get dozens a day." So if she's getting dozens a day, the commissioner knows. I'm going to go on social media right now, and I'm blasting everybody that had anything to do with me wasting 4 hours of my day off making phone calls. I expect a phone call back, and if I don't get a phone call back, the garbage will end up on this commissioner's front lawn, and I'm going to ask everybody that is not getting their pickup to do the same. And if I get a ticket for leaving those dumpsters out there, it'll also come to this commissioner. These commissioners need to do their job and get this garbage.
And one other short one.
Yeah, it seems to me that has bought all the routes over here in East Cobb, and they keep going up in price, and they're giving real crappy service. So maybe you can get with the county commissioners and figure out which one of them took some political campaign contributions to allow this to go on.
As you can see, we have some passionate citizens when it comes to trash. And of course, they form various opinions as to why we have garbage issues or issues with collection of garbage and recycling, in the county. So I wanted to start right off with trash issues. The current trash challenges that we have are that, the garbage hauling deficiencies, as pointed out by, I guess, both callers. Some of these issues were exposed or exacerbated, I guess, during the pandemic, but we have lack of multiple choices of haulers, throughout, Cobb County. Limited flow control of trash and recyclable material, so we don't control who picks up the material, and we don't control where that material goes. Lack of customer service from haulers, as the one caller mentioned, that he could not get a return call, and he couldn't get anybody to pick up when he called his hauler. And hauler and residential pushback to change. So when we've discussed changing our ordinance or making any changes to how garbage is collected in the county, mostly the small haulers, which have a strong or tight relationship, with their customers, they push back right off the bat before they even really hear what we're suggesting. Our ordinance is an issue. The last major overhaul to our ordinance was in the mid-90s. So we know there are several things that we need to include, including the fact that we have no punitive enforcement, ability in our ordinance. So at this point, if a garbage hauler isn't picking up, the best that we could do is just remove that garbage hauler's permit. Now, when we do that, that just means that the residents are going to go that much longer without having their trash up. And if they've already paid for garbage service, then they would have to pay another garbage hauler to come in and pick up where the other one was failing. We have no ability to assign garbage haulers to a specific area, and there's no recycling requirements for commercial institutions in our ordinance. Some of our immediate or short-range proposed solutions to address these issues. Amendments to the code. I believe now we only do code amendments once a year. But during my time with the county, I think we used to do it twice a year, and I've even seen it 3 times in 1 year when we've had an emergency code amendment. So we would be asking for the board to consider not waiting until January for the next code amendment to address trash issues. We're thinking about creating resident-controlled garbage districts. We haven't decided on the number, but let's say if it's 227,000 residents in unincorporated Cobb, if we had 100 districts, then that would be 2,700 per district. Inside of that district, the residents basically would control, they would still be able to choose which garbage hauler they want. But if they have a problem with one specific garbage hauler and we receive 25 or 30 complaints, I guess, within a certain period of time, then we would have the permission to remove that garbage hauler. And we would fine them the amount that they charge their citizens, and we would use that money to be able to bring a garbage hauler in. Like I said, right now, we're still working out the concepts, but that's something that Director Taints and us have been working on for several months now. Second, we require all haulers to return customer calls and emails within 1 business day. Now, we understand for the smaller haulers, that is a challenge. For some of them, they're a one-person shop. They're operating their company from the seat of their garbage truck. So they're calling back customers, as they're picking up trash, during the day. But, we think we need to enforce a timely response to the citizens. And that's why we would want that to also be part of our ordinance change. We want to enforce mandatory recycling to include specified materials or materials that we specify. Now, we would work, with the haulers and, involve them in our research when we're, telling them which materials that they have to recycle. But at this point, some of the garbage haulers may only offer to pick up cardboard and neglect everything else because they have an easy venue for getting rid of the cardboard. But we think that needs to change. And next, we would solicit an RFP for waste characterization study, which will include a life cycle analysis. Now, we'll come back to the life cycle analysis, a little later, and we'll also be talking and showing you specifically what's included in the waste characterization study. Any questions on this slide before I move forward?
I do have a question. Thanks so much. Is there data or instances in which having these types of districts will then have multiple providers pull together and then subcontract to one another?
The current models that I've seen in Georgia are either the district is completely franchised out, so only one garbage hauler or a couple of garbage haulers are allowed to pick up, in that district. So the model that we're proposing is a relatively new concept where we would create the districts, but the citizens would still control who they select as their garbage hauler. But then if they have a problem with the garbage haulers, then they would let us know, and then we would step in.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious if the code should be extended to include provisions around subcontracting out.
I believe that would probably fall more under a full franchise district, which is a separate topic, and I could definitely, bring more information about franchising out the county if the board would like.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Commissioner.
Okay, when you say create resident-controlled garbage districts,
Yes.
is that not the same thing as franchise where you have a certain number of zones that would be exclusive to a specific hauler? Or
No.
is it still open market and just a percentage of their revenue would go to the county every month? Because we looked at different scenarios in the past, different options that we could implement.
Right. It's very similar to franchising out the county, except for it would still be open market. The residents will have the choice, as it were, to select whichever garbage hauler, they want, to use.
For that certain area?
For that certain area. But then if there's a problem with their garbage hauler, that would be when we would have, some enforcement or some control in what happens to an underperforming garbage hauler.
Okay, so we still have the same permitting process and, for the haulers and insurance requirements and all that?
Yes, but we would be including the fact that they would have to acknowledge, that, that the residents will have control, that however many complaints we decide will determine, their fate in a specific district. And whether we decide to charge any type of non-exclusive franchise fee would also be added to our current permitting, which includes the things that you just said as far as the insurance and registration of their vehicles and everything.
Okay. A lot of cities in the metro area or other counties, I know Gwinnett County has an exclusive franchise where one hauler is allowed in each of the, I think, 7 zones
Yes.
that they geographically determine in the county. And they have an exclusive. And they've had some lawsuits and issues with that type. But the other part of that is it really puts the little small haulers, mom and pops, out of business when they have, the wherewithal to do certain areas. Another thing we have to be aware of is some of these haulers have contracts with other haulers to collect the residential waste in Cobb. And I don't know if that would pursue legal action against us or how that works with their contracts now if we did something like this. But we also looked at some of the ways we could still have an open market and allow the ones that meet our hauler permitting requirements to operate in Cobb, and the county would just receive a percentage of the revenue for having, for lack of a better word, a call center for complaints and customer service for, it's not a franchise, but, to manage the haulers. So is that something that was considered?
Yes, definitely taking into account the small haulers that are performing well. That's one of the reasons that, we wanted to leave it, open market and let the residents have their choice of being able to, go with the small haulers that are doing well.
Okay, so if we get a complaint on a hauler and they don't return the call within a business day, we'll hear from the customer that they're not returning the call, and then we fine them or we revoke their permit, or that's going to be it's going to be hard to enforce.
No, I agree. Definitely it's going to be tough. And as I go through some of the longer term solutions, we'll talk about some of the resources that would be required for us to be able to facilitate that.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner.
Is there a more comprehensive list of amendments?
There will be. Today we were just, more presenting the concepts, I guess, that we've been considering bringing forward, in the code amendment process.
But it's more than what we see here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I do, and this is just for clarification. The call that you played, or the various calls that you played for us to hear, were those recently recorded, or were those recorded back when we had mergers and acquisitions going on within the waste management, when we had several big companies consolidating into one?
I believe both of those calls were within the last 6 months, and we've actually had, we have an ongoing issue right now with one of our larger garbage haulers, and that was part of the merger. That was the waste management acquisition of Advanced Disposal.
Okay, because I know my office was getting a lot of calls and emails during the time of the mergers, but our complaints have pretty much gone to Zero. Ryan, correct me. Yeah, we haven't had any of our constituents complaining of trash since it was about a year ago this time. So that's where I wanted perspective, because, you know, what you're sharing is like what we were all experiencing across the district a year ago when the pandemic hit, and they were also merging companies and such. So I wasn't sure, you know, if what you're presenting at this critical point was actually reflective of what happened a year ago because of other circumstances, or if it's still the same issue. Because like I said, we haven't been receiving the calls like we were a year ago.
Okay, we're definitely still getting complaints. I believe I've been copied on emails from Chairwoman's staff and Commissioner Richardson's staff and Commissioner Burrow's staff, you know, on ongoing complaints and issues that we're having right now.
Right, but in the past, say a year ago, it was all one company. Recently, it's been a result of the merger,
Right, so complaints coming in
and
mainly
more
for
recent.
waste management, advanced disposal, and some still for American right now.
Right. But that's what I was talking about, the contract. American has had, I don't know if it still does with the merger, but was picking up all the residential routes of 3 major companies in Cobb, residential only. So, and we were getting a lot of calls on that one company when that was going on. And at the same time, when we had issues at the transfer station with the trucking firms that haul to the landfill.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just say ours were all last month. We got a ton of emails and issues. Trash hadn't been picked up for almost 2 weeks. It was just sitting out on the curb. And we came up with creative ways to try to address that gap.
But again, that was as a result of a merger that had recently happened, correct?
I was just referencing the timeline because I'm not familiar with, you had mentioned last year at this time, so this was.
Right, but what it sounds to me is, yes, we had a big issue a year ago when these mergers were happening, but once the companies got through the merger, were able to reassign, everything got back to normal. So now, and that's why I wanted clarification, because I had not heard that there was another merger. So it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, there was another merger in your area, your districts?
I didn't think that that's what, this was due to the pandemic, or that at least the company cited the pandemic directly being the cause for not having employees available to go pick up the trash.
All right, Commissioner.
Okay.
If I may interject, Dr. Jenkins, it would be helpful if you can help us identify the root cause of those complaints.
Okay.
So we can clarify if this is pertaining to a merger of a particular hauler, or if this is an issue across multiple haulers.
Okay, I can
Yes.
definitely provide that information.
That would be helpful. I know trash and litter have been an ongoing issue across the county,
Yes.
some of them pertaining to individual residential pickups. Some of them are beyond that. Some of them are even to multifamily apartment units, or some who may, may have other issues. So it would be helpful to just get some type of handle on this. I think 2 commissioners asked you clarifying questions regarding the setup, and I'm going to be the third to ask,
Okay.
because it's, in a residential controlled garbage district, I presume that district would have multiple haulers that are responsible for picking up waste throughout that district?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be very easy to identify another hauler. If one hauler wasn't responding, there would be a list of other haulers within that district.
Yes, that is our hope, but keeping it open market, still, it would be up to the haulers to decide whether or not they want to compete in a specific
In that district, okay. And so there would be some process for, I have to find another word than hauler. I feel like I'm saying the word scream instead of hauler, H-A-U-L-E-R, I'm saying H-O-L-L-E-R. But service provider, a service provider would have to go through some type of process to registration process to be a part of a district?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be very clear to staff who are the registered waste service providers in that district.
That is correct.
Okay. Very good.
Any other questions? Now, some of our more, I guess, mid to long range solutions include us soliciting an RFP for a 10-year sustainability waste and beautification plan, or more commonly called a solid waste management plan, that would discuss or include some of the punitive enforcement abilities that I just mentioned, plus some more, I guess, that we are looking at. And also different ways for us to be able to assign garbage haulers to a specific area if we're having that issue, with garbage haulers, or if there is only one garbage hauler in a district, offering service. And in the longer range solution would be actually executing a 10-year sustainability waste and beautification plan, and that would include the staffing that Commissioner Burrow alluded to earlier, because at that point we would require, a business or a customer service manager and probably at least 2 customer service reps, and I would be asking for an environmental, compliance manager also at that point. Any questions?
The fees from the haulers cover that?
At this point, it would depend on the percentage. If we went with the 5% non-exclusive franchise fee that the City of Sandy Springs, includes, I think it would probably be just maybe a little short. It just depends on the what information we get back from HR at that time, for those positions.
Do you anticipate the addition of these positions to solely address the trash service issue within the county and not other issues within the department?
Correct. This would just be for trash.
Okay.
Kimberly will be discussing, Kimberly and Drew from DOT will be discussing some of the other staffing needs that we have a little
Okay.
later.
And the customer service reps for this initiative, would they augment or replace the requirement for haulers to have someone respond to customers within 24 hours? Could they defer? Let's say if they couldn't provide it, could they?
I think in some cases, they would definitely augment. But like I mentioned earlier, some of the garbage haulers that don't have, it's just them, then they would need help.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the larger haulers, they all have office staff or have a full
Yes.
customer service, team.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm thinking of some type of concept where, the larger haulers may have their own team, but the smaller ones may be able to partner with you for an additional fee. In case we get a call, we can let them know of something as possible consideration.
Okay, thank you. I mentioned earlier that I would have talked about history right after I went over mission earlier. At this point, I will talk just shortly about some of the history of solid waste in our department, which was a division at the time. So in about 1995, Cobb County actually, they took out $26 million in bonds to build the compost facility. That's the facility that West Rock currently, operates. At the time, the then chairman, I guess, communicated with all of the haulers and told the haulers if they took their material to that compost facility, that there would be no need to recycle, in the county, that the composting process would do all of the recycling. And of course, we found that to be in error. 4 years later, in 1999, or by 1999, I guess the county had figured out that the relationship that they had with the company that they hired to build and operate the facility, that the company's name was Bedminster, just didn't work out the way they thought it was. The original agreement had the county was going to receive 60% of the revenues from tip fees, the material being brought in, and then 40% of the revenues for the compost sold. And then the company would receive 60% of the revenues from the compost sold and 40% of the revenues from the tip fees. They never sold any material. So at 1999, we found them to be in default, and the county took over operation, assumed the staff. And that's actually when I was hired to the county. I was the first staff hired as to be the plant manager for that facility. So that 4-year period actually started, I guess it put a sour taste, in everybody's minds when it came to solid waste and recycling. After you invest that $26 million, and then it had 2 fires where another $12.5 million were put into the facility for reconstruction efforts after the fires. So basically from 1999, when we had a population of about 600,000 in the county, until 2009, there was really no commitments or no investment in our solid waste and recycling, efforts in the county. But in 2009, that's when we privatized out the operations of the various facilities to TAG, grinding, and to, I guess now GFL and West Rock, for operation of our facilities. And we went from a total of 77 staff in 2009 to 7 full-time and 1 part-time. We operated that way between 2009 until last year, when then Commissioner Cupid sponsored us to be able to go from 7.5 employees to 10 full-time employees, and that's where we are now. But as you can see, the population has definitely been climbing the whole time, and up until last year, we really had not thrown any more resources to try to address any of the rising issues that we've had that went along with that rising population. Are there any questions on this slide? Yes, Chairwoman.
Not directly related, but is there a way to see if all of our residents even have trash service? I mean, I'm looking at this issue and seeing how it's evolved over time, and I can tell you what I've observed is, or what my presumption is that we have some residents that don't even have trash service. And while some of them may be initiative and go to county services to handle their waste, people find other ways to get rid of their waste that are also creating issues. So as much as I think we can ameliorate some of this issue with some of the amendments you propose, I don't know if this addresses where a lot of the issues around waste being left throughout the county are, and on county property and in county,
Right-of-ways.
in our right-of-ways, but we also, on our county facilities, we have large trash, I'm forgetting receptacles, and people are putting in private trash into those as well. I don't know if that's been part of your consideration as you reassess how we can approach waste in the county.
Right. When we did our last solid waste management plan, I believe in 2007, I think the estimate was approximately 8% of the residents did not have garbage service.
8%? About
8%. Probably a good, out of that 8, say 5% were utilizing either our transfer station or one of the other, 4 transfer stations that are in the county. And some of the people that live, say, in Atworth, they take their material across the county line into Paulding County. But there's a subset of that percentage that do engage in illegal dumping and utilizing garbage receptacles behind shopping centers and or whatnot. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner.
Would residential curbside pickup be mandatory under this amendment? Amendments?
No, the only mandatory curbside garbage collection I've seen has been part of the franchise garbage, like they do over in Gwinnett. And that's because they charge, they put it on the property tax for the citizens. And I believe they collect approximately $32 million, on the property tax, for garbage collection.
The Cobb County does that.
Yes.
But they provide the service too.
But they provide, they franchise it out.
And would the fees for the collection amongst the haulers permitted in a certain district be regulated by the county? Or, again, open market, they could charge whatever they want or be competitive?
Now that, we hadn't really, Director Tanks and I had not, really went too far into that discussion. If we keep it, truly open market, then we would be allowing them to set, their rates. The issue that we've seen is that they are very competitive and the rates are relatively low when they first come in the area. But then once they accumulate a large number of residents, they might increase the rates to a subset. So they have a big area, the center of that area might be paying a lot because they know their competitors are not going to drive past all of these other, homes to get to that, subset in the center to compete.
Yeah, because the counties or cities that have the franchise haulers that are exclusive, their rates are set.
Yes.
So that's something too we're going to have to look at.
Yes, I agree. Any other questions? Okay. This slide right here, we show a comparison based off of the expense budgets for Cobb County. Our expense budget in our department is $1.9 million. When you divide that $1.9 million by the $740,000, which I believe is the 2018 estimate, and we use that estimate because that's the same population estimate that's shown for the city of Atlanta, Mecklenburg County, South Carolina, Gwinnett County, DeKalb County, and Lee County, Florida. So you can see that we basically, allot $2.58 per citizen, in Cobb County relative to solid waste and recycling. I would love to be able to say we are that low because we are that frugal, but that would be an error. We are actually, not necessarily providing all of the services and opportunities that some of these other areas are providing. And we will talk a little bit about that, a little later, when we present some of our solutions. Now, I will also say that we're not comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. The larger amounts, the $135 and the $143, those are counties or municipalities where they provide sanitation, full sanitation. They collect the trash, they operate the landfills where the materials are going. So that's why their number is so much higher. Are there any questions on this slide?
Okay, so how much time and space do we really have? So in Georgia, we have about 23 active open landfills. And across the United States, all landfills together, we have a lifespan of about 62 more years left on those landfills. So the reason why this number is important is because if you see the chart, the eastern hemisphere of the United States heavily relies on landfills to handle our waste, where the middle of the country and the western hemisphere rely on other things besides landfills. They do have landfills, but they also rely on innovative processes that handle waste. Why is that important? This chart I showed when I was here not too long ago at the SWMA meeting. This chart basically shows the recycling rates for Cobb County. There was a 2020 recycling rates survey that was done across the U.S. And for us here in Cobb County, as you can see, it goes from darker green to lighter shades of green down to a darker brown color. As you can see, the majority of our county is highlighted in the green shades and the white shades. It is not, however, we do not have any of the super dark shade at the bottom with the lowest potential. What this is telling us is that we have a lot of residents that live here that are focused on environmental issues and initiatives, and they care about recycling. And they're seeking places to be able to recycle, and they're seeking guidance and leadership. So let's talk a little bit about recycling. This happens to be one of our bins at our drop-off location. As you can see, they're overflowing, they're super full. People are using these drop-off locations. But what are some of our challenges? Well, increased usage of these recycling drop-off spots. with minimal staff. We have 2 staff members that service all of the drop spots throughout the county. We've collected, since we started this in June of 2020, 774,400 pounds of recycling that's been collected at these drop spots. So that's awesome, because we're actually collecting this material, but we have an inadequate number of drop-off locations and options. These 4 locations are overflowing daily. We have an ineffective ordinance because we have no commercial mandatory recycling. So a lot of what you see on the ground next to these bins are actually coming from businesses. We watched moving companies back up. They're trying to do the right thing by recycling, but it ends up filling up the bins too quickly, and then the residents that live in the area don't have a place for them to place their recyclable items. What are some other challenges? Well, we're limited on the number of events and the programs that we can do. Our events are very large. We can only do them in specific locations, and we're limited on those, on the time when we can get the locations and when we're able to actually organize these events. Changes in recycling. This happens across the board. It's not just about Cobb County. There are changes all the time. What material can we take? What material can we not take? The national sword happened where we couldn't send specific recyclable items overseas that we had been doing for many, many years. And then recycling disruptions. So during the pandemic, there were some haulers that were not able to, because of their low staffing levels, they had to choose between picking up the garbage and getting up the recycling, and so they put the recycling on hold. And then limited budget for programs and events. Some events, depending on what it is, we have to pay for those events. So when we only have a certain dollar amount in our budget, going forward from there, we're only able to do, X amount of events throughout the year. So we're going to talk a little bit about LCA. An LCA stands for a life cycle analysis. Essentially, a life cycle analysis is a way to assess all of the products and services that we use in our day-to-day lives, okay? So what we're doing is we're looking at, let's say, a can of soup. A farm would grow that food, the aluminum would be mined, the tree would be, cut down, and we would use that to make paper for the label. And all of those items, the materials and manufacturing, then goes to the packaging. So that can of soup isn't, it's not on the store shelf. It doesn't magically appear on the store shelf where we buy it. We actually have to ship it there, and then it's transported, and then we purchase it, we use it. The most important part of this life cycle analysis is, what do we do with that item at the end of its life? There are some things, of course, we can reduce, some things we can reuse, but most importantly, what do we do at the end of the life of that product? That's really important, because being able to recycle it means we are mining much less, we are saving energy, we're saving water, we're saving, a ton of things out there. And I've spoken to all of you guys, and you guys know I could speak for hours about, recycling, but I won't do that to you today. But, we could definitely, do a lot when it comes down to recycling. Waste characterization. Dr. Jenkins brought this up a little bit earlier. So let me give you a breakdown of what we're looking at. This is a waste characterization chart. This is across the board for the U.S. because we do not have our own waste characterization information here in Cobb County. 41% of the waste that's collected is paper fibers. 16% are plastics. If you add those two numbers together, we are at almost 60%, 57% of our waste stream are highly recyclable materials. However, the average recycling rate in Georgia is around 30%. So even if we were able to capture things like paper, which is a great commodity, we have a lot of integrated companies right here in Georgia that handle paper, and they have paper mills and they process the paper. We are not even collecting that material, let alone all the other material on this chart that could be collected. So things like Food could be composted. Yard waste, of course, could be taken to tag grinding on County Services Parkway. Textiles, we have drop-offs for that, and we also have events. Glass, this is a great, commodity. It could be recycled an infinite amount of times, and we can take glass. Just at drop-offs. Please don't put glass in your curbside bins. Metals, if you throw metals away, you're literally throwing away money. Like, people will pay you for metals. So out of all of these things, with the exception of diapers by weight, happens to be 4% of the waste stream in the United States, most of the material can actually be captured in an innovative process or in a recycling process. So what are some short-range solutions? So amendment to our ordinance, right? Enforce mandatory recycling to include specified material. Resume recycling events at Jim Miller Park when we're able to after the current usage is over. Upgrade our recycling drop-off center on County Services Parkway. We have a convenience customer drop-off center over on County Services, and we would like to upgrade that so that it's a better flow of traffic and people will be able to drop off more material. Add 4 additional recycling drop spots in each district, which means that each one of the districts will have 2 drop-off locations rather than the 1 that we currently have. And then add a second household hazardous waste event. This event went from servicing maybe 300 cars to right before the pandemic, we serviced about 2,450 cars in the same time frame. So we've reached our maximum, ceiling on how many cars we could service at one of these events. Having more than one event, would help the community. Also, I'd just like to note that the adding of the additional household hazardous waste event, some of the funding can be provided by the expanded use of the Cobb Tree Fund that the BOC approved. So thank you guys so much for that.
Kimberly, I would like to add, and this may be a provision that's in our ordinance, I'm unsure, but it doesn't seem that all of our haulers are providing recycling services for their customers. And there may be some way to communicate with them to see which one of them are providing that and where there are gaps there, because I'm pretty sure that could help to close that gap that you're seeing if about 90% of our residents are using a commercial hauler and you see that drop off in recycling. I can tell you that we've had some challenges with our hauler in getting that service provided in the southern end of the county. Yeah.
Our county ordinance states that there's a mandatory offering of recycling, but that does not, it doesn't determine like how they offer it or how much they charge to offer it. So there's definitely a varying degree of who can receive recycling from their particular hauler and who does not, depending on that hauler. Some additional recycling proposed solutions. Mini charm centers. The Gumpster's glass recycling drop-off. We are still seeking locations so that we can place the Gumpster drop-off. It's for glass specifically. This is one of the calls. We get calls a lot about glass drop-off. We currently have a few locations in the county that will take glass, but it would be helpful and more beneficial if we had additional locations closer to where people are. Staffing levels. This is mid and long range solutions. 1 recycling coordinator, 2 recycling technicians, 2 truck drivers, and then vehicles to also be able to handle the amount of material that needs to be processed and taken. 3 vehicles, 2 trailers, a garbage truck, a roll-off truck, and containers. Also, there's notes at the bottom where some of the funding can be provided by the Cobb Tree Fund, but also some of the funding can be provided by the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund. Let's talk about litter. So if we look in the orange box, the composition of litter, the majority of litter is paper, plastic, and tobacco products, cigarette butts. There are some other items there as well, but the majority of the litter on the ground, this is what it's comprised of. We also look at the green box, sources of the litter. Overwhelmingly, the sources of the litter come from motorists, cars driving through. And then also some pedestrian areas. So about 76% of the litter on the ground comes from either someone walking to and from or cars driving through. And then the breakdown of litter cost, directly and indirectly. How does that affect a community? Well, businesses overwhelmingly are affected by litter more than anyone else in that particular community. The box to the bottom right, the purple box, this box represents the distance that a trash can or recycling bin needs to be in order for it to be effective in stopping litter ending up on the ground. It's what I call the Disney World option, or the Disney World model. They decided and figured out that a trash can and a recycling bin cannot be more than 25 or 30 feet away from where you're standing in order for it to help eliminate the presence of litter. So that may not be possible for every single place, in Cobb County, but definitely high pedestrian areas. We may want to take a look at some trash and recycling bins so that we can capture this rather than, being reactive and going and picking up the litter after the fact. Maybe we could be more proactive and help stop the litter from getting on the ground in the first place. This is our litter map. So what we're looking at is a map of the areas that are littered based off of reports that come in, requests that come in to both Keep Cobb Beautiful and DOT, actually. So we get, requests all the time to go and pick up litter. These are our routes for our litter index survey. So many of you know that we do these litter index surveys once a year. We have been, and we ride these routes, and we score the county based off a number of criteria, one being litter, of course, but we also do it on pedestrian safety, graffiti, bus stops, a number of items. And then these black lines are our Adopt a Mile locations. So as you can see, that we have a lot of overlapping Adopt a Mile locations, especially in areas where you see a higher rate of reports or requests to get litter up. What are some of our challenges? Well, we have increased litter, obviously, with minimal staff. We have 2 staff members, as I mentioned before, that they totally focus on trying to help the Adopt a Mile groups and helping to get up litter. We did some research, and we kept data from when they began to do these cleanups, and they've done to date 503 cleanups. They've picked up 2,102 bags of litter, and the weight of that litter has been 54,280 pounds. That's about 27.14 tons of litter they've been able to get up, and that's just 2 people. We have a reduction in volunteers. Some of our long-term Adopt a Mile members and groups, they've been with us for a very long time. This Adopt a Mile membership or program has been around for decades. Some of them they're not able to, participate any longer. And at the same time, we're not getting as many Adopt a Mile groups to sign up as we are losing them. So at one point, we had about 180 Adopt a Mile groups. Right now, we're hovering around about 145. So when the number of litter is going up, we have less volunteers in our community helping, to make the difference in helping us pick that litter up. This picture at the bottom left actually happens to be one of my board members who drove past litter just 2 days ago. And she was asking us to help, do a cleanup to get that litter up. So what are some of our solutions? Short-range solutions. We have an educational campaign. It started on Earth Day. So it's a big campaign here. We're social media, on our website. We're doing a community litter pledge. We're doing a green business pledge. We're doing a social media challenge. We have a mascot, the little bumblebee you see down there in the image. She's going to be on a tour around the county, helping us clean up litter and helping us recycle. And we'll put that up on our social media and our website. We have our virtual bingo game, our hybrid virtual educational sessions, which we've already, been doing over the last year. Partnership with statewide and national campaigns, Keep Georgia Beautiful, started the hashtag Reconsider Litter, so we're using some of that information as well. And then our updated litter index survey. Having additional staff members means that we can do more of these surveys. We're required to do them once a year, but we want to do them once a quarter. So it's not only being reported to Keep America Beautiful, our mandatory report, but we can actually take that information and help us, really tackle this issue of litter. And then our litter plogging events, and that's picking up litter while jogging. So our immediate need and our immediate ask, short-range solutions. We're looking for 6 new positions and 1 upgraded position to address increased litter and recycling. The total cost is $379,074. The purchase of 4 KCB vans to transport the litter crews, and the purchase of 4 KCB dump trailers to transport the litter. I understand the need of a lot of departments, I do. And I understand the challenges, or I can understand the challenges that you guys go through as a board. So having 6 staff members added would be really helpful. But I understand that if we could only get 4, then we will make that work with the 4. But having 6 would really be beneficial to our department and our team. This is long-range, mid-range and long-range goals going out. Full staffing levels would be 19 KCB crew members, 1 admin assistant in KCB. Currently, we do not have any administrative assistants with us in our division. 5 vehicles and 4 trailers, surveillance cameras to help us identify those people who are throwing the litter out on the ground so that they can be ticketed. Right now, what's challenging is that unless an officer actually sees someone throw litter on the ground, they cannot give, them a ticket. And of course, if I'm someone that litters, I'm probably not going to throw the litter on the ground with an officer right in back of me. A GIS litter mapping project where we could definitely focus in and zone in on where the litter is, allow residents to be able to report it so we can overlap those maps and see where we're getting a lot of adopt-a-mile requests, where we're getting people to ask us to pick up litter, and where the residents are actually seeing the litter so they can pin it, and then we can see that area and really target those areas that need the help, the most. And then various proposed initiatives, things like a Georgia specialty license plate that focuses in on, litter prevention. Just like there are a lot of, license plates out there, and some of that revenue from the license plate could come back to us so that we can, really tackle this issue of litter. Sure.
At this point, we'll have Drew Ressler from DOT come up to also talk about litter and some of DOT's challenges on our right-of-ways.
All right. Thank you guys for letting DOT be part of this conversation. We have a fantastic partnership with Solid Waste and Keep Cobb Beautiful. With a lot of the bags that are picked up, our crews come in behind and pick those up and dispose of them. So it's a great relationship and one that's absolutely necessary. By way of background, so the division within DOT that handles litter on the right-of-way is road maintenance. So just some background on road maintenance. We're split into 4 different sections between right-of-way, concrete, asphalt, and drainage. And the section that really handles litter is the right-of-way group. Now, it's not all they handle, and it's really seasonally based. So in summer months, so right now they're on their mowing cycles, and they're doing tractor routes and median mowing while grass is growing from about April to October. And then from November through March, they're concentrating and focusing on beautification, and that's when they do specific litter pickups. During the growing season, they're picking up ahead of the mowing crews, and that's just to avoid having confetti all over the roads when the mowers hit the litter and it goes everywhere. As as staff is challenged on meeting their returns, this is why we put such a premium on our returns. The grass grows a little bit higher, so it's tougher to see the litter, and it becomes more of a problem. So that means that during growing season, there's really not a staff focused 100% on litter. And so then it really becomes, out of necessity, a fill-in activity. So if it's a rainy day and they're not able to mow that day, then they'll identify a couple work orders, pick up KCB bags, or go to some hot spots that we know about. And that's what we're showing here is our hot spots. And you can see that on the right side, those are our top roads for litter work orders. And they tend to be roads that are inter-county roads or major thoroughfares where we've got people coming into and out of the county. Our number one road for litter work orders is East-West Connector. To hear Dallas put it, he could start at one end of East-West Connector, go to the other end of East-West Connector with a crew picking up litter, go back to the beginning of East-West Connector, and just keep going because of the volume of litter that they're picking up. And it's, in talking about staff constraints, so we've got 94 full-time employees in road maintenance and 8 seasonal. So 102 employees for 2,400 miles of road. So for every staff member, we've got about 24 miles of road, just in terms of a proportional or equivalent metric there. Of those 102 positions, we currently have 22 vacancies. And so when we have vacancies that high, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. One is our entry level is $12.32. And so being able to recruit and retain individuals when they're CDLs and they're able to go to other places and make more than they're able to make here, it's tough to fault them for that. But it also makes it very difficult to manage this. So zooming in on litter a little bit more, over a year, so we looked at last year's work orders. We had 6,500 work orders, all told. Of those work orders, the number one request was potholes. The number two request was litter. So 6,500 work orders, 1,000 of those were litter related. So all that goes into maintaining the roadway network, the number two request, because it's the most visible part of the county, is the litter on the rights of way. So we sat around a table and we thought, well, what can we do? We're limited on resources and how much additional we can just get out there and pick it up. Is there anything else? And so then we went back into kind of our traffic engineering minds and the 4 E's, and we thought, well, education. Let's start picking up the trash, and instead of just sending it immediately across the street, let's find a place on our yard that doesn't constitute a landfill and start stacking it up. So that's what we did. So this was January of last year, and we made it our litter month. And we just focused a crew on any spare minute they had to go pick up litter and to just put it in one place so that we could demonstrate what 1 month of litter off of the roadway looks like. And so you can see just after day one, it's a lot of orange bags where we've hand-picked up litter, but there's also other stuff in there too. There's shopping carts, there's large tanks from landscaping contractors, there's beds, there's tires. There's a lot more than just someone throwing their Diet Coke out the window. So day 10, so we're a little bit more than a week into this, and you already see they've pushed it up, and it's getting pretty tall. Again, yard signs, all kinds of, there's a couch there on the right side. And then day 30. So this is just 1 month of litter off of the road. So a little bit of stat there, and you see that piece of equipment there next to it. So that's 16 feet tall by 35 foot deep. It's approximately, this room's not quite 16 feet, I don't think. So it's more or less the size of this room of just the litter that came off of the roadway. 100 plus tires. We spent 160 man hours on this. And it is important, but there's a lot of other important maintenance concerns that they were not able to address because they were taking care of litter. The $1,500 in dumping fees in terms of the cost assigned to this is relatively minor because we had a lot of staff time in there, but it's a true cost of having to take this, having to go pick it up, and then take it across the street to dump. And if we just took this out as a pace, we'd be looking at 330 tons per year just coming off of the roadways. So then we took that and we said, well, what are potential solutions? And of course, staffing is one. I'll add as a sub-bullet that's not on there to staffing is recruitment and retention. It's a challenge and continues to be a challenge for us. And I would venture to say for any of the departments that have CDL, because CDLs are in such high demand in the marketplace, retaining those and recruiting those positions is a challenge. Satellite locations it sounds relatively minor because we're just redistributing our staff, but if we can get our staff closer to the work order, that's all that much less time that they're spending in the truck driving there, and they're closer to the work, they're able to spend more of their time on the work. And so this is the concept that we had presented to you all at the retreat that shows the three different satellite locations, and of course improved behaviors. We've done, in terms of enforcement, and Kimberly can speak to this in greater detail across the county, but we've done some where we know there are known dumping sites, little dead-end roads that don't have a whole lot of visibility, where we've partnered with public safety to put out cameras and try to catch those repeat violators, because it's more than just people throwing stuff out of their car or uncovered loads. It's people actually dumping. So trying to identify those, that continues to be a challenge, and anything that we can do on education to let people know about the gravity of this challenge that the county faces. That's my last slide on DOT, but if y'all have any questions.
Thanks, Drew. As a quick recap of our short range or immediate, needs, of course, amendment to the code, the 6 new positions and the 1 upgraded position that Kimberly mentioned, include the 4 KCB vans and the 4 KCB dump trailers, where we would have partial funding available from both the tree fund and from the money that we have coming back from the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund. Waste characterization study, 4 additional recycling drop spots, 1 new drop spot for each commission district to bring it up to 2 drop spots per commission district. Upgrade to county services, recycling, customer service center, and additional household hazardous waste event a year to bring us up to 2 of those, and to resume recycling at Jim Miller as soon as we can. Revisiting the slide that I showed you earlier, the number on the previous slide at 1.9 million was showed $2.58, which is our current allotment per citizen. To add immediate needs, short-range needs would bring us up to $3.99 per citizen. That would equate to 2.9 million versus the 1.9 million our current budget is. Any questions on this slide? Okay.
Okay, innovating into the future. What does that look like for Cobb County, Georgia? Well, if I have to ask myself, what do I want to see happen here in Cobb County? These are the things, right? These are the things I wake up and jump out the bed and go, this is what I'm going to make happen today. Okay, not really, but. So, mini charm centers. Adopt a Green Spot program. That program is going to be affiliated with the gardens that we have that are in areas that people are living below the poverty level, so that they have access to fresh fruits and vegetables for free within walking distance of where they live, and have businesses adopt those areas to help them keep them up. Targeted recycling programming. County facility recycling program. That means all of our county facilities should have recycling in them. Glass recycling drop spots or dumpsters, implement waste conversion initiatives, multi-unit housing recycling valley services. This is an important one, because if you live in particular communities, they already offer this as an awesome service, but it's not offered across the board for all multi-unit housing. Big belly containers for high pedestrian areas. These are the trash cans and the recycling bins that report back, to us when they are half full or 3/4 full, so we know exactly when to go out and service them. Increase beautification and environmental efforts, integrate ordinance into a 10-year solid waste plan, and this one right here I'm so excited about, the Eco Innovation Incubator for Waste Processing Businesses. I would love to see Cobb County, Georgia, be the premier location that eco businesses would come to set up shop and be headquartered here. I mean, we have, as we showed you the slide before, we have a ton of people right here that care about the environment, that want to see more recycling, want to see more innovation. And I think we can do it. Matter of fact, I know we can do it. And so I'm really, really excited to talk to anybody anymore if they want to pick my brain about exactly what I'm thinking about for the eco innovation. But I know we can do it.
And this last slide, we just added that third column where it shows $8.58. That would be basically our 5-year plan, showing all of those positions that we talked about, including the recycling coordinator that would allow us to do some of the innovating into the future that Kimberly just spoke of, the customer service manager and that customer service team. And $8.58 would equate to $6 and I believe 53 cents added to, what our current budget is, or I'm sorry, it would be $6.3 million, would be the budget amount for our expenditures for our department at that point. But today, the one that's blinking, that would be, what our current ask or what we see as our immediate need, and that would be the $3.99 or the $2.9 million expense budget for our department. Are there any questions? I know we threw a lot of, information at you guys today, and we appreciate your time. We could probably do a work session on either litter or recycling or trash. So we definitely appreciate, you giving us the opportunity to discuss all three of these issues today.
Thank you. No immediate questions, just comment, really. First, I want to thank you for this helpful presentation today and putting this issue in front of us that we deal with every day, but helping to pull all this information together. And really, I perceive this to be not just an informative work session, but a call to action for us to do something. Because once you know better, then we have the opportunity to do better. So I thank you for this presentation, but I also thank you just for the general responsiveness of you, Bill Tanks, Kimberly, Drew, Erica, Dallas, all of the DOT engineers for responding to our many emails and calls with respect to waste and litter throughout the county. Once you drive into an area and you start to see litter and waste, it paints a picture that is hard to really overcome. And so while we're quantifying the impact of this to the county, it's very difficult to put into, that into words or a dollar amount, the impact that it has when people drive through certain areas. And I'm certainly grateful for the volunteers with Keep Cobb Beautiful. They put forward heroic effort. But I was at a meeting the other day and someone made a comment that I absolutely agree with, that even their heroic efforts at the end of the day are not sustainable because we require so much of them. And, Barry Krebs from Lions, I see him almost every weekend as I'm taking my children out to sports. He is out there cleaning, and you see all these civic groups that are out there cleaning. It's helpful because they want to improve their community, but it's just not sustainable given the volume of litter that we have here in the county. I'm hoping that with some of the ideas that you put forward today, that there may be some consensus from the board about how we address it. I would just ask for your help in helping us through the different amendment suggestions that you made so that everybody is clear on what those could be. I would just ask for your help in enforcing the current amendment. Perhaps we can strengthen it for the haulers and the recycling services. Again, I know that has been a challenge where I've resided. The recycling suggestions and having more drop boxes, I appreciate that, and there's some other suggestions like a valet service. I'd like to learn more about that. But there's certainly issues that I've observed with some of our multifamily residential areas, and perhaps some directed services needed for those types of development.
Okay.
And there's another, this slide that you have, which compares Cobb to other areas. I want to delve into that more deeply, because the city of Atlanta, they have their own hauling service, I believe. Are there any others that have a similar construct to what we have today that's on there, or to what we're striving to have, where we can compare a little bit more apples to apples?
Similar, but every area seems like there's just a little different.
Everybody's doing something different.
Just a little different.
So we have an opportunity to see what works best for us here.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I know it's budget season, and we're hearing a lot of the requests, so we would ask nothing less of you than to let us know what the issues are. It's just, we've got to determine how we're going to move forward. But thank you again for your presentation, all that you do, and for working with us in advance to figure out how we get out of this. Do any other board members have any comments, questions? Commissioner Braun?
Just a few comments.
Yeah.
First of all, great job, all of you, today. It's a lot of information to absorb at a work session. So I would suggest before the budget process to get with each one of us one-on-one or two at a time to kind of throw out ideas or suggestions or get clarification on some of the things. And I know for DOT, since we took over our in-house crews in each district, the litter and the mowing and maintenance and everything has improved from what it was when we outsourced it. And I think, combining, I'm not sure about the trucks and the crews and all that you're requesting, how that would work with DOT or separate from DOT, or if it's a duplication of DOT or their crews, but we can discuss that further and I can get more clarification on how that would work.
Okay.
But as far as the drop-off centers and the recycling programs, that should be the responsibility of the curbside haulers to do that. And once we change the ordinance, they'll have to.
Okay.
Because right now, like Kimberly said, it's just, they have to offer recycling. And there's, it could be bi-weekly, it could be, bi-monthly, it could be once a month, it could be, $10 extra per cart or whatever. So there's no structure of what they have to do, or, So I think that there's some good things in the works that could be amended with a code change, with the ordinance change. So I look forward to meeting with all of you and discussing this in more detail. But thank you again for the presentation. I know you've worked long and hard. And Kimberly, I know you do get up every morning and say you're going to do something, because you do make it happen. So you keep up that attitude.
Thank you.
And lastly, we do have handouts or an executive summary of what we presented today.
Very good. Thank you.
And thank you again.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. If there are no more comments or questions, we'll call this work session to close. Thank you.